All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for some real people out there, just like you and just like me. Before I get going here, the beautiful and talented Chez Kane. This is her debut album. Her new album, Powerline, comes out on October 21st, and I've heard it, and it's spectacular, just like this one. If you like Vixen, Lita Ford, Cher, that kind of music, you should also check out the interview I did with Chez Kane. Just such a nice person. It's awesome to be able to promote something that is not only good artistically, but you know that the person involved is a really nice person. All right. Just saying it. Okay. Chez Kane, she is the hottest woman in melodic rock these days. Speaking of hot, the controversy now where Steve Perry and Neal Schon are now in a legal battle along with Jonathan Cain, I think goes back to the era that, again, things weren't maybe being managed all that well in the band journey. And Neal Schon at the time, this was probably what, 2017, 2018, made the claim that he was almost ousted, almost uh, basically removed from his own band. And I didn't think too much of that because I thought maybe it was hyperbole. Maybe Neal was overreacting. Neal tends to sound the alarm, so people will pay attention to what he's talking about. But based on all the information that has come out about trademarks, and that you establish one company and that company is more concerned about copyright, it's not really dealing with trademarks. Then Schon and Cain established their own company, the JNLLC, which is now trying to deal with copyright. Nightmare Productions didn't really deal with trademarks. So it's kind of interesting that Perry has come along and said, not so fast. You can't just establish these trademarks, without my input and my permission. And I think this will probably be long and drawn out. This isn't going to just, happen overnight. And I don't think Perry is going to be satisfied with a lump sum because this is in perpetuity. These revenues will never go away. So long as planet Earth exists, Journey's history will be there for everyone to hear and to see. But my bigger theory on all this now is I believe the coup back in 2018 or 2017 or whenever that happened, I believe the coup was supposed to be a hostile takeover of the band. And I believe because Perry was involved, that Perry wanted Journey back. That's my theory. Steve Perry, Herbie Herbert, and Steve Smith and Ross Valerie, right? So you've got, three core members of this band. And obviously there's animosity that lingers because it was in different interviews that Perry gave. They asked Perry to answer questions about Jonathan Cain and or Neal Schon, and it wasn't very favorable. It wasn't positive. In fact, in some cases, Perry dropped some very colorful language, and especially in the case of Jonathan Cain, he was a little easier on Neal Schon during that time frame. But Neal, I think, was trying to make it sound like the media was instigating this and the media was responsible for dividing, the members of this group and saying, hey, the media makes a lot out of this, this Perry interview. He did one with Rolling Stone where he was very blunt. In fact, I think the writer of that interview actually reached out to me at the time and said, no, he said all of this stuff. He really did say it, because I was questioning the whole thing at the time. I'm pretty sure I did a bunch of videos where I was saying, no, Neal says that this isn't true, but yet the interviewer kept telling me that, you're missing it. And I said, okay, because he was in the room, he was the guy doing the interview, and there was no sort of candy coating what Steve Perry was saying about Neal Schon and Jonathan Cain. So there is no love between these guys. There just isn't. No matter how much Neal Schon wanted to go out and have that coffee. And here's the motivation. There are so many people that love Steve Perry. So to get in good with Steve Perry would certainly be a positive thing for Neal Schon and with Jonathan Cain. I think Cain said that Perry was welcome back in the band anytime he wanted to be back in. Pretty sure. I think Arnell said he would step aside. But this is way beyond that. Perry wanted control of the organization. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been in these meetings to basically oust Schon and to oust Cain and to have Steve Smith and Ross Valerie, who he kicked out of this band back in the 80s and said, no, we need a new rhythm section because these guys aren't, they're not funky enough for me or whatever. But years later, again, you've got allies or strange bedfellows. Maybe they made amends. Maybe just because the three of them weren't happy with Jonathan Cain and Neal Schon. But here's another strange thing. I know Cain and Ross Valerie, I think, were really good friends at one time. They used to hang out together. I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. So it's kind of bizarre to me. And I'm trying to keep up with all this. Is it just about money? It has a lot to do with the money, because like I say here, this will go on in perpetuity. So these guys know that they need to kind of get a hold of this revenue stream and not lose it, and have an airtight legal case for, trademarking the coffee mugs with Journey song titles or whatever it is that they're trying to do here. I do think that end of it, to me, is a bunch of rich guys fighting over how much more wealth they can have and give to their offspring, pretty much for eternity, right? But there's this other part of this, which I think is way more interesting, where Steve Perry, I think, was trying to take the band back. I really do. Through this whole board of directors, through this whole kind of end around, we'll just outvote these guys and vote them off the island. And then what are they going to do? Right? Because the board has spoken, and the board apparently controls the fate of the band, not just through all of this corporate trademark copyright stuff, but controls the band, like who's going to be in the band. So, hey, we've decided that Neal Schon is no longer a member of Journey. And Neal Schon at the time even said, hey, they're trying to kick me out of my own band. That's a true story. So they were, I think, pretty close to doing that. Obviously, the courts decided against them, at least there. But I think on this trademark issue, they might have some difficulties here. They might. And Neal Schon says, hey, we're going to peel back the onion. Maybe Perry doesn't want to take over the band anymore. Maybe he saw an opening and he convinced Ross Valerie and Steve Smith to go along with it. I had heard through the grapevine that Steve Smith wasn't too thrilled being back in Journey. Let's just put it that way. But maybe he would have been if it were Steve Perry's band. Don't know. It's just very strange how this is all continued for so many years, and the lawsuits just keep on coming. So that's my theory. I think Steve Perry wanted to come back in and control the whole thing. He denies, by the way, I think he denied in one article that, he was part of this, but it's been confirmed now multiple times that he was part of this coup, and he sided with Valerie and Smith, which to me is really ironic again, since he fired those guys back in the 80s because he couldn't get the sound he wanted from them. And Ross Valerie, especially if you go back through the archives, I don't think he's a big Steve Perry fan. I just don't know based on the interviews he did, but maybe things have changed. Maybe he's come around to that idea that, hey, Steve was the backbone of this band, and maybe I don't like him as a person. Maybe I don't understand his personal life and all of his inner struggles, which, it was portrayed, especially back in that VH1 documentary, that Perry was just a basket case and these guys were just trying to move on without him, and they're going to be this great band without him. Guess what happened, people? They never, ever got back to where they were with Steve Perry. And most people just looking at it, not even taking a deep look, they're going to say, yeah, Perry, nah, nobody's going to top him. And you could say that about every band. Foreigner, nobody's going to top Lou Gramm. Styx, nobody's going to top Dennis DeYoung, who is no longer in Styx, and he should be. And that's a situation that could get resolved, at least allow Dennis to tour for a, big reunion, or do something to celebrate 50 something years, I think, for Styx now, since like early 71 or 72, I think, right? So that isn't happening. And Journey's 50th anniversary is coming up next year. So for those of you who are thinking, hey, maybe there'll be a reunion, this is worse than the Eagles, where Don Henley said, when hell freezes over, that's when the Eagles will get back together again. And, anything's possible, but Irving Azoff isn't the manager of Journey anymore. Neal Schon is, according to his post yesterday. So Perry, I think, was trying to take the whole thing back. That's my theory. I could be wrong, and I just put it out there just as a discussion point, right? Perry trying to come back and take the thing back and kick both Schon and Cain out. Would Journey fans have embraced Journey without Neal Schon? I don't know. I know there would have been a lot of people really excited about having Steve Perry back in that band, but it's hard to imagine Journey with 0 original members, right? And without one of the greatest guitar players in history. It just would be hard to imagine. But there is so much love for Steve Perry and people wanting to see Perry perform again and hear Perry sing, right? That it's plausible. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm just saying it's completely plausible that the plan was to take it over, to maybe bring back this more original lineup. It would be interesting, though, who would they get to play lead guitar? That would be a chore. I mean, they could bring Greg Raleigh back on keyboards too, right? Singing keyboards, and this would take you back to the days of, say, Departure and Evolution and all that stuff, and you would just need a guitarist, which I can't imagine Journey without Neal Schon. But again, folks, it's just a theory. The more I think about it, the more I think it was an unsuccessful, complete takeover of the band, and that Steve Perry was the mastermind behind it. That's my theory. Anyway, Chez, Kane, her new album, Power Zone, comes out on October 21st. Like I said earlier, I've heard it. It's amazing. There are a couple of songs already out there. There's one real steamy video out there that you can see called I Just Want You. I always mess the title up. I said I Still Want You or something like that during the interview, but I think it's I Just Want You. And it's really good. It's a really good video, and it's an even better song. So there you have it, folks. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell if you want notifications on new videos. Patreon, if you want to join Patreon, the logo to Patreon is on the actual banner of my YouTube channel, in case you get confused with that. Well, Patreon logo, you click on that. That will take you over to Patreon, where you can sign up and become a patron. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.